Once upon a time, there was a beautiful couple from Indianapolis, high school sweethearts who flew planes. Scotty painted and Dolores did interior design. They liked everything to be just so and had 2 kids. But then they had a 3rd kid, which was a surprise. That is when Brian was born. He wrecked through his meals and airplane models, earning him the title of Super Dirt. He flew planes into the sun, he planted a garden in the bathtub, he read all of the 1001 elephant jokes to his brothers, every one until elephants were outside the back door, and there were many ideas for what had not happened before. One day, he went down a water slide. Whee! Until he lost his front tooth, oh no, and had to replace it with a fake one. His family and him loved to go camping, and he started going camping with them when he was 4, and he had a great time, even if he had to carry his backpack, which was just as big as him. Ha 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 ha. He loved camping so much that he was heartbroken when he broke his arm, which made him unable to go camping the next time. That's rough. His mother stayed home with him as he stared at the moon, waiting for a more exciting day. Is there such a thing as destiny? He asked his mother. Was I destined to break my arm? Is that what despair feels like? There you are, my little philosopher, she smiled. I don't know if everything was destined. We always have free will. You didn't have to break your arm. No, I don't know if everything was destined, but I know I was meant to be your mother, and I'm so glad you're my son, even if you put gardens in the bathtub, messes on the table, and somehow get paint everywhere, even when you wear an apron. We were meant to be a family. When Brian graduated, him and his best friend Vance, who made pottery, both signed up for the Marines on a whim. While in the Marines, he changed his major from pre-med to psychology to theater. I think I'm an artist, Brian said. I think I'm supposed to study theater. We know that was going to happen, his mother said. I'm glad you figured it out. His father said, go be the best artist that you can be. How lovely, very supportive parents. As he continued to study, he asked to be honorably discharged from service so that he could be a theater professor and continue to study. The higher-ups saw his artistic calling, and their eyes widened at the word theater. They did not ask any questions and let him continue his work to teach. In grad school in Florida, there was the sea and the sky and a theater. And a pretty girl in blue. The pretty girl was named Lynn, and she didn't like to do her scene shop hours, but she was nice and smart and organized and had a pretty smile. His friends told him that he should really go to Lynn and Becky's theater party after an opening show. I don't know, Brian said. I just got over a relationship and I'm pretty sad about it and I kind of just want to be alone. No, his friend said, dragging him to the party, or at least he convinced him. Lynn and Becky's party was a pretty good one, and they seemed to be having a great time. At the party, once Brian got there, 2 girls followed him around, but only one he noticed. It was Lynn. It was always Lynn. It was at that moment he knew he must woo her. She had also just broken up with her boyfriend, and Brian and Lynn slowly realized that they had much more in common than anticipated. They cooked together, potato bakes and soup. Lynn would bring him lunch because of all his creative ideas he would forget to eat. His nieces and nephews thought they were the coolest. It helped that Uncle Brian had an ear piercing, was in the Marines, or at least was in the Marines, and had his motorcycle. He also smoked until Lynn told him to stop. Anyway, it helped that they cooked together and they made the most delicious meals, like chicken feet spaghetti. This is too real, Lynn feared. Perhaps this was too much. It felt too serious, too crazy. To be with a guy that had so many dreams that he would forget to eat, that was scary, for he dreamed beyond the moon. Meanwhile, Brian visited home on his motorcycle, for his parents who had given him so much were not doing so well. He was stressed. Vance, his best friend, was there and gave him some pottery to give his girlfriend as he returned to Florida. He strapped it to his motorcycle, grabbed a pack of cigarettes, and returned to Lynn's side. I don't know if we can continue this, Lynn said. What do you mean? He responded. This relationship feels too real. You live beyond the moon. I don't know if I can. Marry me, he said. Can I think about this for a little bit? Sure, he said, because I love you to the moon and back. Wow. So Lynn had to choose between her old flame and Brian. You're more romantic than me. Do you think we could get along? I think we would have an exciting life together, Brian said. And Brian, he was more adventurous, and that was fun. So they were married! Yay! Happily ever after. You're pretty cool, the family's oldest members on either side said to the couple. Brian and Lynn were able to communicate without talking. They were connected. And let's be honest, they made each other's lives exciting, but Lynn helped keep him sane. Happily ever after! Except life was still happening. They made a home together. Wherever they were, they lived in many spaces and different places with their cats and their dog named Rocky. And through the years, they made many new friends. But they were also sad because they had trouble having kids. And then they arrived in Indiana, PA. Wow. And when they got there, they made some silly new theater friends, such as Ed, or Patrick, or the singing tenors in Hawaiian shirts. This is a trend. And many other friends, including Aaron and Karen, and Brian and Ed became fast friends, where they taught together, laughed together, and had Nerf gun fights. In Indiana, they also found out they were expecting a child. Wow. But it was complicated because life is complicated. And Brian's mother passed away. That's rough. There was a lot of sadness and a lot of hope, but still something was not right. And Lynn had to be hospitalized, and they were both scared. And then she was life-flighted to Pittsburgh. And there wasn't enough room for Brian on the helicopter. He drove as fast as he could to Pittsburgh, and as he drove, he saw the biggest shooting star in his life. Whoa! And Maddie was born, but we're not going to focus on this person. Anyway, but let's move on. Brian kept doing his thing, designing, teaching, puppetry, and gardening. Lynn kept doing her thing with music and management, fa la 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 la, and they felt like their life was very full. When Ed left, he left by scooter, and however joyous that felt, it was also very sad, because Ed was one of Brian's best friends. And I mean, he's still alive, but still, long distance friendships are sad. Oh, we're being interrupted by Brian and Corey in the scene shop doing some dancing. Brian's dad could never get over the loss of his true love, and so after the years, he began to deteriorate and pass away. This was a very difficult time. Brian thought of the paintings his father had painted, and yet no one had seen. So with his inheritance, he made an art gallery so artists like his dad would never get lost in the shuffle. "You're well-intentioned, but so ambitious. Are you sure?" Lynn said. It was always an adventure with Mr. Jones, and that's why they loved each other so. We're going to fast forward through many shows and friendships and stories of professorship, many students who would not be where they are without Brian Jones. Now we come to a time near where we are now. Lynn and Brian are booked and busy. "Perhaps I will finally retire," Brian said. "There is so much to do in the garden." Now, was the garden a literal garden, or was it more metaphorical? No one was certain, for there are still shows to create and stories to tell. It is a happily ever after with a garden and a gallery and many days more, but no one's certain of what ideas are brewed for tomorrow, because there are many things that have not happened before. Anyway, that's the end, folks. I hope you had a grand time listening to the life and times of Brian Jones. This is the low-budget version. I'm sure at some point there will be a book and a full movie, so stay tuned for the life and times of Brian Jones expanded edition. The end.